You will not find heroism, hope, or light at the end of the tunnel here. Before you lies the life of a hunter who wakes up every morning not by his own will, goes into the woods not for his own catch, but for someone else's table, and returns home where neither rest nor gratitude awaits him. But before you get comfortable, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you are watching from and what time it is there. I am really interested to see who has joined us. Now, get comfortable. We're about to begin. You do not wake to the sound of birds or the gentle touch of sunbeams. No, you wake because there is no real sleep. Not here, not in this place, not in this time. You lie on a wooden plank, one that pretends to be a bed, but your back aches every morning from its refusal to become anything other than what it is: hard, splintered, uncaring. The air is thick with the sour stench of bodies and damp wood. If you inhale deeply enough, you can almost taste the mildew. Your head is heavy, but you have no luxury to linger, no moment to stretch. There are voices already, somewhere outside, too faint to understand, but strong enough to command. You listen. Someone coughs, someone mutters, someone curses their luck quietly so the overseer cannot hear. Somewhere, water drips through the roof, forming a tiny pool by the door. You know not to step in it, because wet feet mean trouble later, and trouble always finds a way to multiply here. Sometimes you imagine what it would be like to sleep until your body says, enough. You imagine soft sheets. You imagine a world where you are not woken by hunger, gnawing at your insides before the sun has even decided to show up. But you are not allowed to imagine for long, because there is work to do. There is always work to do. You sit up and wrap your arms around your knees, taking a moment to adjust to the cold that seeps through every gap in the wall. You hear someone shuffle beside you. Another day, another round in this endless game where the rules are never fair and the prize is survival. You do not own the morning. The morning owns you. Sometimes you wonder if the morning ever gets tired of seeing your face. It is dark, but you know your way around the cramped cabin by heart. There is a single window, too small, too high up, too covered in dirt to offer any view, but a gray smudge of nothing. You touch the rough wall and wince as a splinter drives itself under your nail. You say nothing. Pain is as constant as the rising sun. There are others here, all wrapped in whatever rags they could scrounge the night before. Your neighbor, Joseph, is already awake, his eyes staring at nothing. You do not speak. Words are precious, and this is not the time to spend them. You rise, stretching only as much as you dare, then shuffle over to the corner where the bucket waits. It is never clean. Hygiene is a luxury reserved for someone else, somewhere else. You splash cold water on your face, just enough to remind yourself that you are still here, still breathing, still forced to play your part. Your stomach growls. It is a familiar sound, a kind of music that no one wants to dance to. You think about the day ahead, The hunting, the walking, the fear that clings to your skin like the sweat that never quite washes away. There is no break from it, no secret place to hide. You have learned to live with it because not living with it means not living at all. A shout rings out from outside, sharp and cruel, the sound of authority. You know better than to ignore it. You grab your threadbare coat, more holes than fabric, and slip it over your shoulders. It does nothing to keep you warm, but it gives you the illusion of being protected, at least from the morning air. You step out of the cabin and into the pre-dawn gloom. The world is colorless here, all grays and blacks, until the sun decides otherwise. You see the main house, large and smug, looming over the rows of cabins. You see the smoke curling from its chimney, the promise of warmth and food that will never reach you. For a moment, you let yourself wonder if the people inside are awake yet, or if they are still lost in dreams that have never known hunger. You walk across the yard, your feet crunching on frost-bitten grass. Every step is a reminder that you belong to someone else. The overseer waits near the cookhouse, his eyes narrow and calculating. You lower your head, hoping to become invisible. You know it will not work, but you try anyway. He calls out your name, mangling it as always. To him, you are not a person, just a tool with a label. You do not correct him. You learned that lesson your first week here, and the scars on your back remind you not to forget. There is a line already forming near the cookhouse door, men and women standing in silence, heads down, waiting for the day to begin. The cook, a woman with hands like tree roots and a face that could curdle milk, ladles out a thin gruel into tin cups. You accept yours with numb fingers, cradling the heat, such as it is. You do not expect flavor. You do not expect satisfaction. You do not expect anything, really. The sky lightens just a bit. You eat quickly because time is not on your side. It never is. The day waits for you, indifferent and endless. There will be no reprieve. There will be no rest. There will only be the next moment, and the next, and the next, each one heavier than the last. And so you begin, because you must, because the alternative is worse, because in this place, in this time, hope is not just scarce, it is dangerous. You do not remember what hope tastes like. You only remember the morning and the splinters and the hunger. You have survived another night. The day is not yours, but it is here, and so are you. You shuffle along in the cold, tin cup still clutched in your hand. The gruel is gray, lukewarm, and tastes like sadness left out in the rain. You eat it standing up because there are no chairs for you, and no one cares if you are tired. You hold the cup as if it contains some secret treasure, as if your life depends on it, which in some small, miserable way it does. You dare not drop a single drop. It will have to be enough. There are no spoons. You tip the cup, and the watery mush slides into your mouth, gritty and bland. It sticks to your tongue and teeth, then slides down your throat, with the reluctance of a guilty memory. You tell yourself that it is enough, that it will keep you on your feet, at least until the sun is high. You know better, of course, but lying to yourself is sometimes the only kindness you get. You look around and see but other faces, as hollow and drawn as your own. They eat in silence. Words are expensive. You watch a young boy, maybe 10 years old, use his fingers to scrape out the last bits from his cup. His knuckles are raw, red from the cold, and he stares straight ahead, eyes glazed. He will grow up to look just like you, if he is lucky, or maybe not lucky at all. Somewhere, a woman coughs so hard you think she might break. She leans against the wall, cup pressed to her chest, eyes closed. The cook barks at her to hurry up. No one waits for anyone here. The world is a machine, and you are just another gear, rusted, but still turning. You finish your meager meal and wipe the rim of your cup with your sleeve. The taste lingers, more memory than flavor. The cup will be used again at midday if there is food to put in it. Sometimes there is not. You learned long ago not to complain. Complaints buy you nothing except trouble. You make your way to the tool shed, the place where the day truly begins. It is not really a shed at all, just a lean to with a roof and three walls, the fourth side open to the elements. Tools hang from nails, some broken, some barely holding together. You see axes, shovels, and the battered old gun that has become your constant companion. It is not yours, not really. Nothing is. The overseer hands it to you with a grunt, not even bothering to check if it is loaded. That is your responsibility. If the gun jams, if you misfire, if you lose it, well, you already know what happens then. You grip it tightly, feeling the roughness of the wood, the cold of the metal. It smells of oil and old blood. You check the pouch for powder and shot. Not much, but maybe enough, maybe not. You ask for more, politely, quietly, but the overseer laughs and shakes his head. That is all you get, boy. Make it last. You nod, because what else can you do? You have learned not to beg. You sling the gun over your shoulder and grab the worn leather bag that you will use for your catch. It is heavy, already carrying the weight of expectations you know you will not meet. The others grab their tools, hoes, rakes, baskets, and set off toward the fields. You alone head toward the woods. Some think you are lucky to be away from the overseer's watchful eye, away from the endless rows of cotton or corn. You do not feel lucky. The woods are not safe. Nothing is safe. You walk past the cabins, each one a carbon copy of the last, gray, sagging, defeated. Smoke drifts from a few chimneys, the last dying embers of last night's fire. Children huddle by the doors, rubbing sleep from their eyes. They stare at you as you pass, some with curiosity, others with envy. For a moment, you wish you could trade places with them, if only to feel that kind of hope again. At the edge of the yard, you stop and look back. The big house looms over everything, its windows glowing with candlelight. You imagine, not for the first time, what they are eating for breakfast. Eggs, perhaps, ham, biscuits, butter, food with flavor, with color. You try not to think about it, but the thought gnaws at you anyway. A bell rings, sharp and urgent. The day has begun in earnest. You tighten your grip on the gun and step into the trees. The woods are quiet, but not silent. You hear birds calling to each other, far away, out of reach. You see a rabbit dart across the path, too quick for you to catch. The ground is hard, covered with fallen leaves and broken branches. Every step is a risk. You cannot afford to twist your ankle, cannot afford to fall. No one will come looking for you if you do not return. You take a deep breath, the cold air stinging your lungs. You tell yourself that tomorrow will be different, that tomorrow you will bring back something good. Maybe then you will eat more than gruel. Maybe then you will sleep a little easier. But you know the truth. The truth is always waiting, just out of sight, just out of reach. You are a hunter, but you are also hunted. You are not free. You are never free. You walk on, the cup empty in your hand, the taste of morning lingering in your mouth. And so the day begins. The first rays of sunlight are not a gentle blessing here. They come crawling through the thin branches, pale and tired, as if even the sun itself has no desire to see this land. The light does not warm you. Instead, it reveals everything you would rather not see: the mud that cakes your shoes, the bruises on your arms, the endless trees that promise no escape and no kindness. You step further into the forest, your step slow and careful, not out of leisure, but because a twisted ankle means disaster. There is no one to help you if you fall, no one who would even notice until the day ends and you fail to return with your catch. Then you would be noticed, but only as a problem to be solved, a liability, not a person. The gun on your shoulder is a burden. It is too heavy for the comfort it brings, and too light for the fear it creates. The wood is worn smooth in places, the metal pitted with age and neglect. You have been told more than once that if you lose it, your back will pay the price. The threat hangs over you with every step. You know the overseer's whip as well as you know the lines of your own hands. It has left its signature on your skin more times than you can count, and in the cold morning, those scars ache. You check the pouch at your side: powder, a handful of shot, a few old wads of paper for the barrel. Not much, never enough. You must make every shot count, because if you return it empty handed, there will be no sympathy, no understanding, only questions. Why so little? What did you do with the shot? Are you lazy? Are you stupid? You have no good answers, and even if you did, it would not matter. As you move deeper into the forest, the world changes. The noise of the plantation fades behind you, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the occasional snap of a twig. You are alone, but never truly alone. The forest is full of eyes, the eyes of animals, perhaps, but also the eyes of patrollers, slave catchers, men who are paid to ensure that you never think about running, never entertain the idea of freedom. You are a hunter, but you are also prey. It is a strange kind of irony that you are sent to hunt in a place where you yourself could be hunted at any moment. The ground underfoot is treacherous, tangled with roots, and littered with fallen branches. Your boots, if they can even be called that, are thin and worn. Every step sends a jolt up your leg. You have learned to walk quietly, learned to read the signs of the forest. A broken branch here, a tuft of fur there, the faint tracks of a deer or a rabbit. You are not hunting for sport. You are hunting for survival, though not your own. You hear the distant caw of a crow, a sound that seems to echo your own feelings. The bird is free, able to fly wherever it chooses, able to leave this place behind in an instant. You, on the other hand, are tethered to this land, to this fate, as tightly as if there were chains around your ankles. You pause in a small clearing, listening. Your ears strain for any sound of movement. Sometimes you wonder what it would be like to hunt for yourself, to take your catch home and share it with your family, to feel pride instead of dread. But pride is a dangerous thing here. It leads to questions, to punishment, to loss. It is better not to feel anything at all. The cold bites at your fingers as you load the gun. You pour the powder, pack the shot, tamp it down with care. You have seen what happens when a shot goes bad. The barrel explodes, the recoil knocks you to the ground, and suddenly you are the one in need of help that will never come. You work slowly, methodically. There is no room for mistakes. You begin to move again, scanning the ground, looking for signs. Your mind is half on the hunt, half on the dangers that lurk beyond the trees. You know the patrols do not always stick to their routes. Sometimes they come this way, looking for runaways or troublemakers. Sometimes they are bored, looking for someone to remind of their place. You step over a fallen log and freeze. Ahead, you see movement. A rabbit, quick and nervous, sniffing at the ground. You lift the gun, steadying your hands as best you can. Your heart beats faster, not with excitement, but with a dull, anxious fear. You can not afford to miss. You aim, exhale, and squeeze the trigger. The shot rings out, startling in the silence of the forest. The rabbit falls, and you hurry forward, grabbing it before it can disappear into the undergrowth. It is small, barely enough to feed one person, but it will have to do. You slip it into your bag and check the pouch again. One less shot, one step closer to running out of luck. You continue your slow march through the trees, eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of life or any sign of danger. The light grows stronger, but it does not bring warmth. It only sharpens the edges of the world, makes everything more real, more inescapable. Somewhere, far off, you hear the sound of laughter. You cannot imagine what could be so funny. You keep walking, keep hunting, Keep hoping that you will bring back enough to avoid a beating, enough to survive another day. Your stomach growls, reminding you that the thin gruel from the morning is already gone. You dream, just for the moment, of a meal that fills your belly, of a table where you are allowed to sit, of a world where you hunt for yourself and eat what you kill. But the dream fades as quickly as it comes. The forest closes in around you, and the day goes on, indifferent to your wishes, unmoved by your pain. You are a hunter, yes, but you are also hunted. The only difference is that you know it, and they do not care. You take another step, then another, into the endless, unyielding morning. The gun in your hands is not truly yours. It is a loan, a grudging allowance, a tool pressed upon you not for your sake, but for the sake of your owner's table. If it were up to you, you might prefer a snare or a bow, something quieter and lighter, something you could trust. But trust is a dangerous luxury, and you know that even your own hands are not your own here. The musket is an old thing, scarred and battered, a patchwork of repairs made by men with no time and fewer resources. The wood is worn nearly smooth by generations of hands, some black, some white, none permitted to claim it as their own. The metal, once polished and proud, is now mottled with pitting and rust. You sometimes think the gun is like you, pressed into service long after it should have been retired, every flaw and crack hidden beneath a coat of oil and the threat of violence. You are reminded daily of the gun's importance. When you collect it each morning, the overseer watches you with sharp eyes, his fingers toying with the handle of his own whip. He does not hand it to you with trust, but with warning. He lists the rules, always the same. Do not lose it. Do not break it. Do not wander far. Do not imagine for a moment that it belongs to you. If it misfires, if it vanishes, if it is found in the hands of anyone else, you alone will answer for it. And you know the answer will be pain. Sometimes, when you are deep among the trees, you run your hand along the stalk, feeling for new cracks or chips. You check the flint and the priming pan, always aware that any flaw could mean disaster. There is never enough oil, never enough time for maintenance, but you do what you can. You have seen too many others suffer for less. The pouch of powder and shot is likewise rationed, every grain counted, every ball accounted for. You have become an expert in stretching your meager allowance as far as it will go, in collecting spent wadding and searching the ground for bits of lead to melt down into new shot. Waste is not just frowned upon, it is punished swiftly and without mercy. You sometimes wonder about the men who carried this gun before you. Did they feel the same weight, the same constant fear, or did it belong to someone for whom a misfire meant only inconvenience, not agony? The memory of the gun seems to seep into your bones, a cold, hard certainty that whatever happens, it will never be truly yours. When you shoulder the musket, you are careful not to let the muzzle point anywhere. It should not. There is no safety catch, no margin for error. The barrel is pitted inside, and sometimes it spits smoke sideways when you fire, burning your hand or face. You have the scars to prove it, but you have also learned to accept that pain is inevitable. Pain is part of the bargain, as much a part of your day as hunger or fear. It is a bitter joke, really, to be trusted with a weapon and yet not trusted at all. The overseer says you are responsible, but he means only that you are responsible for his property. He makes sure to remind you that the gun is worth more than you are. He would sooner see you whipped half to death than see a scratch on the metal. If you come back empty handed, you will be asked if you have sold the gun, if you have given it to a runaway, if you have hidden it for some imagined rebellion. You have not, of course. The thought alone would be enough to get you killed. But suspicion is as much a part of your life as the gun itself. You carry both through the woods each day, invisible weights that drag at your heels. On bad days, when the gun jams or the flint will not spark, you spend precious minutes coaxing it back to life. Each second is an eternity because you know that every failure will be seen as your own fault, no matter how old or broken the tool. You have learned to fix things with whatever is at hand: bits of leather, strips of cloth, slivers of wood. You do not complain, not even to yourself. Sometimes, late in the day, you find yourself gripping the musket tight, hands white knuckled with a mixture of fear and rage. The weapon is a symbol of everything you are and everything you are not. It is freedom, in a way. It lets you leave the fields, lets you wander the forest where for a little while you are alone. But it is also a chain, just another instrument to keep you tied to this land, to this life. You know better than to resent the gun itself. It is just a thing, after all. Like you, it goes where it is told, does what is demanded, and when it fails, it suffers the consequences. In this way, perhaps, you and the musket are not so different. You shoulder it once more, adjust the strap across your chest, and move on. The forest is waiting, and so are the dangers it holds. You must be careful, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of the gun. It is not yours, and it never will be, but it is your responsibility, your burden to carry, your shadow in the woods. And so, as the morning stretches on and the sun begins to pierce the gloom, you march deeper into the trees. You hunt because you are told to. You guard the weapon as if your life depends on it, because it does. Every step, every shot, every moment is a reminder. Nothing here belongs to you, not even the things you hold in your hands, not even the breath in your chest. You hunt, but not in the way a free man hunts. There is no joy in it, no thrill of pursuit, no sense of sport. There is only the slow, grinding necessity of survival, though even that word feels like a lie. Survival, after all, implies some choice in the matter, some dignity preserved. Here, survival is just another word for being put to use. Your master expects meat for his table: rabbit, squirrel, possum, raccoon, quail, whatever moves, whatever bleeds, whatever can be thrown into a pot and made to serve. If you do not bring back enough, it will not be your master who goes hungry. You have learned by painful repetition the cost of failure. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget: the sting of the whip, the shame of being paraded before others as a warning. The woods themselves are not kind. There are brambles that snag at your legs, vines that pull at your sleeves, branches that seem to wait until you are close before snapping back into your face. Your skin is a patchwork of small wounds, each one a reminder that even nature in this place is not your friend. The animals are clever and quick. They have learned, as you have, to stay out of sight, to move quietly, to run at the first sound of trouble. You crouch low behind a fallen log, peering through a curtain of ferns. Your breath comes in clouds that hang in the chill air. Somewhere ahead, you hear the faint rustle of leaves. You freeze, muscles aching, every sense straining for the shape of something edible. You do not move. You do not even blink. This is not the time for mistakes. Minutes pass. Your legs begin to cramp, your hands to tremble. You press the stock of the musket to your shoulder, sighting along the rusted barrel. The animal, when it appears, is just a blur of gray fur, a squirrel, busy and unsuspecting. You hold your breath and squeeze the trigger. The shot cracks through the stillness, impossibly loud. For a moment, you can hear nothing but your own heartbeat. The squirrel falls. You hurry forward, scooping it up before the blood cools. It is small, but it is something. You slip it into your bag, already heavy with the weight of not enough, and reload with shaking hands. Every shot you take is a decision. There is never enough powder, never enough shot, and always the knowledge that missing means less to bring back, more to answer for. You save your shots when you can, trying to get close enough for certainty. Sometimes you resort to stones, to snares, twisted from old wire or strips of cloth. Sometimes you catch nothing. On those days, the walk back to the plantation is the longest in the world. You do not hunt alone by choice. There are others out here sent into the woods with the same desperate purpose. You see them sometimes, shadowy figures slipping between the trees, each one locked in their own silent struggle. You do not call out. Conversation is dangerous, if not because of the risk of being overheard, then because every word is a reminder of how little you can trust anyone, even those who share your suffering. There is danger everywhere. The patrols are the worst. White men on horseback, armed and bored, who roam the forest in search of runaway slaves or imagined threats. If they catch you where you should not be, with more meat than you are supposed to have, or even just looking the wrong way, they will find a reason to punish you. Some days you hear the distant bark of their dogs and freeze in your tracks, heart pounding. You hide your face, your catch, your fear. And then there are the other dangers: snakes coiled under the leaves, wild boar that do not care if you are a hunter or not, sudden storms that turn the ground to mud and leave you shivering under a tree, praying for the lightning to strike somewhere. else. You have learned to read the signs of the weather as well as the signs of the animals. Rain means fewer patrols, but it also means cold and misery. You think sometimes about what you would do if you could hunt for yourself. Would you take more time, choose only the best game, prepare the meat with care? Would you teach your children to hunt, show them the tracks and trails, the quiet places where the deer hide? But those are daydreams, and daydreams are not welcome here. They are as dangerous as hunger. Your hands grow numb as the morning wears on. The bag grows heavier, but never heavy enough. Each new catch is a small victory, but you do not let yourself celebrate. There is always the next shot to worry about, the next corner to peer around, the next sound to investigate. You keep moving because to stop is to think, and to think is to remember everything you have lost. You rest for a moment, sitting on a stump and letting your muscles loosen. You eat nothing, though your stomach aches because the meat is not for you. Sometimes, if you are lucky and careful, you can sneak a scrap, a sliver of fat, a bit of offal, but it is not enough. It never is. You eat as little as possible during the hunt because you know you will need your strength for the walk back, for the questions, for the endless demands that await you. You press on, following faint trails and half remembered landmarks. The sun climbs higher, filtering through the canopy in sharp, white shafts. Sweat runs down your back, chilling you as soon as it appears. The woods are alive with the sounds of insects and birds, but you are tuned only to the sounds that spell danger or opportunity. By midday, your bag is as full as you can make it. Your arms ache, your legs are heavy, and the musket digs into your shoulder like a second spine. You turn back toward the plantation, already rehearsing the words you will say if you are questioned, the lies you will tell if you must. You walk quickly, head down, hoping to avoid attention. The trees seem to close in behind you, hiding the world you have left, promising nothing and keeping even less. As you emerge from the woods, you glance back once, just once, and see nothing but shadows. The hunt is over for today, but it will begin again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. There is no escape, only repetition. You carry your catch with both hands, as if it were proof of your worth. You know, deep down, that it is not enough. It will never be enough, but it is all you have. It is a strange thing to be both the hunter and the hunted. Every step you take into the shadowy depths of the forest is laced with caution, not because you fear the beasts that roam the underbrush, but because you fear the men who call themselves your keepers, your protectors, your masters. The forest is full of secrets, and none of them belong to you. You know the rules here as well as you know the path from your cabin to the yard. Do not stray too far from the plantation. Do not linger in places where you cannot be seen. Do not try to meet others unless you must. The patrols are out there, white men on horseback, some carrying lanterns, some carrying guns, all of them carrying the cold, casual violence of authority. Their presence is like a chill. that never leaves your bones. Sometimes you hear them before you see them, the crunch of hooves on old leaves, the jingle of spurs, the low, lazy murmur of voices that say nothing and everything all at once. You freeze in place, hardly daring to breathe, your heart pounding in your ears. It is an old terror, but it has not grown weaker with repetition. If anything, it has only grown sharper. You think about running, but there is nowhere to go. The patrols are not just a threat to your body, they are a threat to your very existence. They are paid to hunt runaways, and sometimes they decide that any black man in the woods is a runaway. They have caught you once before, years ago, when you were new to this job. You remember the way their laughter sounded, how they circled you like wolves, poking and prodding with their rifles, demanding to know your name, your business, your master's name. You remember the way they forced you to kneel in the mud, the way they debated whether or not you were telling the truth. In the end, they let you go with a warning, but not before they made sure to leave bruises where no one could see them. Now you are always on guard. Every movement, every sound, every breath is measured and deliberate. You have become skilled at hiding, at listening, at knowing when to disappear. It is a talent born of necessity, honed by fear. But the patrols are not the only danger. The other men sent into the woods to hunt are both companions and rivals. They are desperate, just as you are, and desperation breeds suspicion. Sometimes you see a flash of movement behind a tree, hear a cough or a whisper. You keep your distance. If you must speak, you do so in hurried whispers, exchanging only the most essential information. Where did you see the last rabbit? Did you hear dogs this morning? Is there any sign of patrols? You do not ask about families, about hopes, about dreams. Those are luxuries, best left for another life. Here, trust is rationed more strictly than powder and shot. There are other fears, too, smaller, but no less real. The forest is a living thing, full of shadows and dangers. There are snakes that blend perfectly with the dead leaves, striking without warning. There are wild boar, mean and territorial, that will chase a man as quickly as a deer. There are hornets' nests, hidden in the low branches, ready to explode at the slightest touch. There are sudden storms that come out of nowhere, drenching you to the bone and turning every path to slippery mud. You have learned to move quietly, to listen for the warning signs. You watch the birds, noting when they fall silent or take flight. You scan the ground for tracks, for broken branches, for anything that might spell trouble. Your senses are always on high alert, tuned to the rhythms of a world that does not care if you live or die. And then there is the fear that comes from within, the fear of your own thoughts. Sometimes, when you are alone in the deepest part of the woods, you feel a strange, dangerous hope rising inside you. The trees seem to whisper, you could keep walking, you could disappear, you could be free. You know better, of course. The world beyond the plantation is full of dangers greater than any you face here. The dogs would be set on you. The patrols would hunt you down. The consequences would be swift. and final. You have heard the stories and you have seen the bodies. Still, the thought lingers like a splinter you cannot remove. You wonder sometimes what it would feel like to be hunted only by hunger, to walk without the weight of someone else's fear pressing down on your shoulders. You wonder if the birds feel fear when they fly, or if freedom is a kind of forgetfulness. You shake these thoughts away. They are useless, dangerous. You focus on the task at hand, listening, watching, surviving. You grip the musket tightly, knowing it is both your weapon and your shackle. As the sun climbs higher, you move deeper into the woods. The shadows grow shorter, the light sharper. You find yourself sweating, even in the cool air, your body tense with the constant strain of vigilance. Every sound makes you flinch. Every rustle in the underbrush sets your heart racing. Once you see a patrol passing close by. You drop to the ground, pressing yourself flat against the earth, hardly daring to breathe. You can smell the horses, the sweat of the men, the powder on their guns. They are close enough to see you if they care to look, but they are lazy, careless, certain of their own safety. You wait until they are gone, then wait longer still, counting the minutes in your head. Only when you are sure it is safe do you rise and continue on your way, heart still hammering in your chest. By midday, you are exhausted, not just from the physical labor, but from the relentless fear. It is a heavy, clinging thing, a blanket you cannot cast off. It saps your strength, dulls your senses, makes every decision harder than it should be. Yet you press on. There is no other choice. The forest is dangerous, yes, but the world outside it is even worse. The only way to survive is to keep moving, to keep hunting, to keep fearing. You are a hunter, but you are also hunted. And in this place, that makes all the difference. You move quietly, always listening, always watching as you work your way deeper into the woods. The world narrows down to the crunch of your own footsteps, the sound of your breath, the whisper of wind in the branches above. Sometimes you catch yourself longing for silence, true silence, the kind that means peace rather than the pause before trouble. But even on the rare days when the woods are still, you know you are never truly alone. Sometimes, if luck is unkind or necessity demands it, you encounter others, men and women, young and old, sent out from the cabins for the same reason as you. They carry what little they have: ancient guns, snares made from twisted wire, sacks for the catch. Their faces are as hollow as your own, eyes darting with suspicion, fear, and a tiredness that no sleep could ever cure. You learn quickly that meetings in the woods are never by chance. Even if you have been assigned different territories, the boundaries are nothing more than suggestions, easily blurred when the hunt is poor or the overseer's demands are high. When paths cross, the first instinct is caution. You freeze, waiting to see if the other will speak or if both of you will pass like ghosts in the daylight, each pretending not to see the other. Today, as you step into a thicket near the creek, you hear the snap of a twig, a sound too deliberate to be made by any animal. You crouch low, heart pounding, fingers wrapped tight around the musket. A moment later, a figure steps out from behind a tree. You recognize him. It is Abraham, tall and thin, his clothes patched so many times the original fabric is nothing but a memory. You nod in greeting, careful to keep your voice low. Morning, Abraham whispers, glancing nervously over his shoulder. He carries a snare in one hand and a small, battered hatchet in the other. You had any luck? You shake your head. Not much. Caught a squirrel and spooked a quail. Dog's been close? Abraham grimaces. Heard him down by the old oak. Patrol came through earlier, looking for Samuel. He's gone missing again. You both fall silent, the weight of Samuel's disappearance settling between you. Gone missing could mean many things. Hiding in the woods, caught by patrols, or worse. You share a look. There is no comfort to be given, only a kind of shared resignation. Conversations in the woods are brief, practical, and always shadowed by suspicion. No one wants to be accused of plotting, of sharing secrets that do not belong to them. The trees have ears, and the wind carries words farther than you'd like. Still, you trade small bits of information where the rabbits have been running, where berries might still be found, which parts of the forest are safest this week. There are days, of course, when desperation overrides caution. On those days, the line between cooperation and rivalry blurs. If Abraham's snares are empty and you have caught a little more than you need, you might trade quietly a scrap of meat for a length of sturdy cord, or a handful of berries for a share of the next day's powder. These trades are never spoken of outside the woods. To be caught sharing is to risk punishment, but hunger will make a gambler out of anyone. You remember, not long ago, when two women were caught splitting a rabbit between them. The overseer beat them both in front of the whole yard, shouting about theft and dishonesty. The memory of their screams stays with you, a warning etched deeper than any scar. Sometimes, when you and Abraham are sure there are no patrols nearby, you talk about other things, not about freedom or hope, but about practicalities. Who is sick in the cabins? Who got a letter from family, though most cannot read them? Who had a child born and who lost one? The news is rarely good, but even the smallest gossip is a reminder that you are not completely alone. Today, though, you keep it brief. Abraham glances up at the sky, judging the sun's position. Best keep moving. Overseer said he wanted something for supper tonight, and I ain't got enough to show. You nod in agreement. The pressure is always there, a vice tightening around your day. Stay safe, you say, and you mean it. Out here, luck is as important as skill, and sometimes more. You move off in opposite directions, each of you disappearing into the tangled underbrush, each carrying your own bundle of fear and hunger. The woods close around you again, and soon you are alone, but the encounter lingers in your mind. There is a comfort in knowing you are not the only one scraping through the day, but it is a bitter comfort, colored by the knowledge that no matter how many you meet, you all walk alone. You hear another shot ring out in the distance, echoing through the trees. Maybe Abraham got lucky, maybe not. There is no way to know and no way to find out without risking more than you can afford to lose. Sometimes you wonder if, in another life, you and Abraham would have been friends, partners even, sharing the hunt, splitting the spoils, sitting by a fire in the evening with your families, telling stories to children who are not born into chains. But such thoughts are dangerous here. They make your feet heavy, your aim less steady, your resolve weaker. So you push them aside and focus on the next step, the next rustle in the brush, the next chance at meat. The hours creep by, marked only by the movement of the sun and the deepening ache in your legs. When you meet another hunter, you share a nod or a muttered word, never pausing long enough to draw suspicion. Each meeting is a reminder that survival is a group effort only in the barest sense. You are many, but you are never together. As the day wears on, you cross paths with others, women with baskets, boys too small for the field, but not too small to carry a snare. Each encounter is quick, wary, tense. You trade nothing but glances, the silent language of people who know that trust is a precious thing, easily spent and rarely repaid. You do not linger. The sun is slipping, and you still have not caught enough. The woods are full of eyes, and not all of them are friendly. You keep moving, head down, hoping for one more rabbit, one more bird, one more chance to prove your worth to men who will never see you as anything more than a tool. By the time you turn it back toward the plantation, you are exhausted, both from the hunt and from the effort of staying invisible to everyone but the trees. You tell yourself that tomorrow might be better, that next time you meet someone in the woods, it will be of a day when you have something to share, but you know better. In this place, every day is a wager, and the house always wins. The weather in these woods is a tyrant all its own. It cares nothing for your hunger, your pain, or your hopes. One day, the cold comes creeping in before dawn, a heavy, bone deep chill that seeps through your clothes and lingers in your lungs. The next, the heat settles on your shoulders like a punishment, every breath thick with dust and pollen. There is no kindness in the air, no relief. The weather, like everything else in your life, is just another challenge to endure. When the cold comes, it finds every weakness. Your clothing, such as it is never enough. You wrap yourself in rough cloth, a coat so full of holes you could count the stars through it if you dared look up. Your shirt is thin, your trousers patched and stiff, your shoes nothing more than leather and memory. You walk, and your toes go numb, your hands turning red and raw. The wind whips at your face, chapping your lips and making your eyes water until you cannot tell if you are crying or simply losing the battle to the weather. You know better than to complain. No one cares if you freeze. The white men who own the land bundle themselves in wool and leather, warming their hands by great fires and wrapping their children in blankets. You glimpse them sometimes, through the windows of the big house, and you wonder if they know what the cold is like. You wonder if they have ever felt hunger and cold at the same time, if their bones have ever ached from the inside out. But you do not let yourself dwell on it long. Envy is just another kind of pain, and there is enough pain already. The cold settles in your joints, makes every movement stiff and clumsy. Your breath hangs in the air in ragged puffs, a pale ghost trailing you through the trees. The gun grows heavier, its metal biting at your skin whenever you touch it. Sometimes, when you have a moment to yourself, you rub your hands together, blowing on them to coax a little warmth back into your fingers. It is never enough. And then there is the heat, which arrives with no warning and no mercy. One day you wake to a sky so bright it hurts to look at, the air already thick and buzzing with insects. The sun beats down on you as soon as you step outside, and by midday you are slick with sweat, your shirt plastered to your back, your hair matted and sticky. The forest, which felt so close and suffocating in winter, now becomes an oven, every tree radiating heat, every patch of sunlight a slap across the face. You drink when you can, but water is not always easy to find. The streams shrink to muddy trickles, the wells run low. Your mouth is dry, your tongue thick. Sometimes you catch yourself dreaming of rain, of cool breezes, of a world where the heat is not a punishment, but a gentle reminder of summer. But the reality is always harsher. You swat at mosquitoes and gnats, wipe the sweat from your brow, and keep moving. Your clothes, never enough for warmth, are now too much for comfort. The rough cloth scrapes your skin, leaves rashes where it sticks, and you scratch absently as you walk, knowing the marks will be noticed, but unable to stop yourself. The overseer, of course, does not care. If you come back sunburned and sick, it is your fault. If you come back shivering and half frozen, it is your fault. In this place, everything is your fault. There are times in the deepest part of winter when your feet go numb and you stumble more than you walk. You wrap them in rags, stuff grass and leaves into your shoes to block the wind, but the cold always finds a way in. You have seen men lose toes, even feet, to the frost. You have heard stories of hands turning black, of flesh dying a little at a time. You think about those stories as you flex your fingers, willing them to keep working, to keep you alive one more day. In the summer, your body rebels in other ways. You sweat until you feel hollow, your skin slick and shining. You cannot seem to drink enough, no matter how many handfuls of water you steal from the creek. Your lips crack and bleed, your eyes sting with salt. Sometimes, when the sun is at its highest, you feel dizzy and sick, the world tilting beneath your feet. You press on, afraid to stop, afraid to be caught resting when you should be working. Rest is for other people in other lives. The bugs are a misery all their own. They swarm around your face and hands, crawling into your sleeves, biting and stinging until your skin is a patchwork of welts and sores. You slap at them, curse them under your breath, but they always come back. At night, when you finally stumble back to your cabin, you scratch until you bleed, then lie awake, listening to the whine of mosquitoes and the creak of the wind outside. You cannot choose the weather, cannot bargain with it, cannot escape it. All you can do is endure day after day, season after season, until the world changes or you do. Sometimes you dream of places where the air is always gentle, where the rain falls soft and warm, where the sun is a blessing instead of a curse. You think, maybe, that is what freedom feels like, a place where the weather is just weather and not a test of your will. But for now, you trudge on. The cold burns, the heat smothers, and you keep moving because that is all you know how to do. You wrap your arms around yourself in winter, fan your face with your hand in summer, and promise yourself that one day, somehow, it will be different. You do not believe it, but you promise anyway. You know the moment when the gun goes off, or the snare snaps tight, or the hatchet lands its blow, that what you feel is not pride or triumph. It is something darker and heavier, a mix of relief and resignation, a fleeting sense of having done what you must so that someone else might eat, so that you might, at the very least, avoid the lash for another day. The catch is bloody. It always is. The blood stains your hands, gets beneath your nails, dries in brown streaks across your knuckles, and never quite washes out, no matter how many times you rub your skin raw in the creek on your way home. You do not get to choose what you hunt. Sometimes it is a scrawny rabbit, sometimes a fat opossum, sometimes a pair of birds with feathers missing and bones already brittle. If you are lucky, it is enough to fill your bag. Most days, luck is thin on the ground. Still, you take what you can. Every animal you catch is weighed, measured, and judged, not by you, but by the ones who own you. Your success means nothing unless it means full plates in the big house and praise for the overseer. Praise for you? Do not be foolish. You remember your first catch, the sticky metallic smell, the warmth of the body cooling fast in your grip. There was a moment, one single silent heartbeat, when you felt sorry for the creature, sorry enough that your hands shook as you tucked it into your bag. That softness has long since been beaten out of you. Now you do not hesitate. You cannot afford to. Every shot fired is a debt you owe. Every animal caught a payment against the balance of someone else's comfort. Blood is not the only thing you carry back. Sometimes, when you gut the animal in the woods, because it will spoil faster in the heat, and because the overseer does not want mess brought into his yard, you find parasites wriggling in the flesh, tumors bulging beneath the skin, wounds you did not cause. You cut these away and toss them aside, hands moving automatically. You have learned not to flinch. Sickness in the game is a risk, but hunger is always certain. Sometimes, if you are feeling brave, you eat the scraps raw, chewing quickly, trying not to think about what else might be living inside them. The hunger is worse than the fear. There are days when your catch is less than what is expected. Maybe the animals have gone deeper into the forest, or maybe the weather has turned, or maybe you are just unlucky. It does not matter. The result is the same. You imagine what the kitchen will look like when you arrive. The cook's face set in disappointment, the overseer's lip curling in disdain, the threat of punishment as plain as the hunger in your own belly. You count your catch again and again as you walk, hoping that the number will change, that somehow you will have more to show than what your hands already know is not enough. On rare days, you catch something big, a wild turkey, a fat raccoon, a possum heavy with summer fat. Those days are a strange kind of torment. You will be praised for a moment, but the animal will be taken from you, whisked away to the big house, cleaned and cooked and served to people who have never been hungry a day in their lives. If you are lucky, you might be allowed to keep the feet, or the head, or the guts, something to gnaw on when night falls and your stomach screams. You tell yourself that it is better than nothing. You are practiced at pretending. You work quickly and quietly, not only to avoid attention from patrollers or other hunters, but to avoid the scavengers who haunt the woods. The scent of blood carries far. You have seen coyotes slink from the brush, yellow eyed and wary, their hunger rivaling your own. You have seen buzzards circle overhead, dropping lower with every step you take, ready to pick the bones clean before you are even out of sight. Sometimes you wonder if, when you die, they will come for you in the same way. No hesitation, no ceremony, just hunger meeting hunger, the old law of the woods. As you walk back toward the plantation, your hands sticky and red, the bag growing heavier with each step, you think about what will happen to your catch. It will be weighed and examined, every bite scrutinized. You will be asked, "Is this all?" As if you have been lazy, as if you have kept the best for yourself. There is no good answer to that question, and so you do not try. You simply stand and wait for the verdict, your eyes on the ground, your thoughts elsewhere. Sometimes, when the cook is in a good mood, she will let you scrape the last bits from the pot after the meat has been boiled and served. You and the other hunters will huddle by the kitchen door, waiting for the signal. You eat with your fingers, licking grease from your palms, grateful for whatever scraps you can scavenge. The taste is always the same, salty, fatty, gone too quickly. You do not talk as you eat. There is nothing to say. The blood stays with you even after you have washed. It is under your nails, in the cracks of your skin, a reminder of what you have done and what you will do again tomorrow. Some nights you dream of blood, of hands that cannot get clean, of animals that stare at you with wide, unblinking eyes. You wake in the dark, sweat sticking your shirt to your back, the taste of iron in your mouth. You know there is no honor in this kind of hunting. You are not a provider, not a master of your fate. You are just a tool, a set of hands made to kill and carry and clean. The blood is not a badge of skill, but a mark of necessity. You would give anything to be able to leave it behind, to catch for yourself, to eat the best parts, to feed your own family first. But the best you can hope for is that tomorrow's catch will be enough to keep you from the whip, enough to keep you on your feet, enough to let you see another sunrise through the dirty glass of your cabin window. Tomorrow you will wake and the hunt will begin again. The bag will be empty. Your hands will be clean for a moment, and then the blood will come as it always does, and you will do what must be done because there is no other choice, not for you. The walk back to the plantation is not a victory march, not even when your catch is as good as anyone could hope for. Your muscles ache, your mouth is dry, and every step seems to remind you that you are carrying a burden heavier than meat. Each footfall brings you closer to scrutiny, closer to the judgments and punishments that are always waiting just beyond the yard. You keep your head down as you approach the familiar path, worn smooth by so many feet that came before you, men, women, children, all walking the same weary line. The trees thin, and the forest yields to the open ground of the plantation, a place that is never truly open, never truly free. Even the sky here seems smaller, hemmed in by the looming silhouette of the big house, its whitewashed walls shining with an arrogance the sun cannot touch. The yard is already busy by the time you arrive. Field hands stoop beneath the weight of their own days, bent double over cotton or corn, moving in slow, endless lines. The cook's smokehouse coughs a thin stream of blue smoke into the afternoon air, promising warmth and food that will never reach you. Children, barefoot, wide eyed, peek out from behind cabins, watching you with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Maybe they hope you have brought something good, or maybe they are simply counting the days until they, too, are old enough to join the cycle. The overseer is waiting, as always. He stands with his arms crossed, his boots polished, and his face arranged in a permanent mask of suspicion. It is his talent, perhaps his only one, to make every man and woman feel as though they are already guilty, already caught. You avoid his gaze, not out of deference, but out of self preservation. There is no safety in eye contact, no comfort in being seen. Let's see what you've got, he says, his voice flat and bored, as if he is reviewing a shipment of firewood or a stack of bricks. Not the results of your long, dangerous morning. You unsling your bag and hand it over, careful not to let any blood drip onto his shoes. He pokes through the contents with the tip of his stick, prodding the dead animals as though their very existence is an affront to him. Not much, he mutters, even if the bag is heavy. What happened out there? You fall asleep? You say nothing. There is no answer that will satisfy him. If the bag is light, it is your fault. If the bag is heavy, you must have cheated or stolen or gotten lucky in a way that makes him suspicious. You have learned that silence is your best defense, silence and stillness, the posture of someone who is hoping to avoid being noticed just a little longer. Sometimes he finds a bruise on one of the rabbits, a patch of missing fur, a bird that is too small or too thin. He holds it up for everyone to see, shaking his head in disappointment. Is this what I pay for? He asks, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear, and the word pay hangs in the air like a joke, an insult so obvious no one dares to laugh. You stand there, your back straight but not too straight, your eyes lowered but not too low. The other hands glance over, taking in your catch, your posture, the set of your jaw. Some are relieved you brought enough to avoid a scene. Others are just glad it is not their turn under the overseer's eye. Once, early in your days as a hunter, you tried to explain yourself. You talked about the weather, the scarcity of game, the noise of the patrols driving everything deeper into the woods. The overseer listened, then took off his belt and showed you exactly how much he cared about explanations. Since then, you have learned to keep your mouth shut and your thoughts to yourself. The overseer tosses the animals back into your bag, his inspection finished. Take it to the kitchen, he says, and next time, try not to waste my time. You nod, careful not to move too quickly, careful not to show any emotion. The kitchen is your next stop, a low, smoky building where the cook waits, arms folded, face as unreadable as stone. You hand over your catch and watch as she sorts it, dividing the meat into neat piles, deciding what will go to the big house and what, if anything, will be left for the quarters. If you are lucky, she will slip you a scrap of liver or a piece of gristle, something to chew on during the long afternoon. If you are unlucky, you will get nothing but a glare and the smell of food cooking that is not for you. The sun is higher now, beating down on your shoulders, making your shirt stick to your back. You wipe your hands on your trousers, the blood already drying, already turning brown. You wonder what will be done with the heads and feet, the bones and guts. Sometimes the cook saves them for stew. Sometimes she throws them to the dogs. You do not ask. You have learned that questions rarely lead to answers you want to hear. The musket is next. You bring it to the tool shed, where the overseer checks it for damage, for missing powder or shot. He counts what you have left, frowns at the state of the barrel, and reminds you again, without ever saying the words, just how easy it would be for all this to go badly. You nod, take what is given, and say nothing. The musket is hung up, another tool waiting for another day. Your legs ache, your arms are tired, and your stomach is as empty as it was when you left before dawn. But the day is not done. There are still chores to do, water to carry, wood to split, children to watch. You long for rest, but rest is a story told by other people in other places where the sun sets and the work ends, and someone says, well done. Here, the sun is just a clock, and the clock never stops. As you walk back across the yard, you see others returning from the fields, their faces as blank and weary as your own. You nod at Abraham, catch a glimpse of one of the women from the kitchen, see a boy limping, holding his arm against his side. No one speaks. The silence is heavier than the air, a kind of surrender that says, we have nothing left to give. You glance up at the big house one more time, see the curtains flutter in the window, see a shadow pass by. Someone, somewhere, who will eat well tonight. Someone who will never think about blood under their nails, about the ache in their legs, about what it means to be watched and weighed and found wanting. You look away, back to your path, back to the world that is yours only because no one else wants it. You reach your cabin and sit on the steps, letting the late sun warm your face for a moment. The day is almost over, but not quite. You think about the hunt, about tomorrow, about the bag that will be empty again in the morning. You wonder how many more days like this you have left, how many more walks through the woods, how many more returns to a place that has never once felt like home. But you do not let yourself dwell on it. The work will not wait. The overseer will not wait. The sun will not wait. So you stand up, dust off your hands, and go back to whatever must be done next. Because that is what you do. You would think, after so many years, that you might grow used to it. You tell yourself that the scorn of men like him should fade into the background, become just another noise in the daily symphony of orders, shouts, and sighs. But contempt, it seems, is more persistent than hunger, more reliable than the seasons. It greets you at dawn, follows you to the woods, and waits for you in the yard when you return. The overseer, Mr. Hammond, though you rarely dare use his name, wears contempt like his coat, comfortably, as if he were born in it. There is no curiosity in him, no wonder or empathy. You are a number to him, a tool, a line in an account book that must be managed and kept in order. If you vanish tomorrow, he will miss you only in the way a farmer misses a broken plow, an inconvenience, nothing more. He stands with his boots planted wide, his hands behind his back, his jaw set at an angle that says he is bored, and you are responsible for it. He inspects your catch, prodding with his stick as if you are too filthy to touch with bare skin. He does not look at you, not really. His eyes slide over you, seeing only what you represent. Another day's meat, another item checked off his list. Sometimes you wonder if he ever sees you at all, or if he only sees the shape you cast in the dirt, a shadow that comes and goes as he commands, never solid enough to count as a person. When he does address you, his voice drips with disappointment, the kind that leaves stains deeper than bruises. "This is it?" he asks, holding up a squirrel by its tail as though it were something found under his boot. "This is what you call work?" You keep your face blank, your mouth closed. You have learned the hard way that words only make things worse. Explanations are treated as excuses, and excuses are treated as insults. The best you can hope for is to be ignored, to be dismissed as unworthy of further attention. The other workers watch from the corners of their eyes. They know the script as well as you do. If the overseer is feeling generous, he might let the day pass with only a few cutting remarks, a sneer or two, a lecture on how his own hunting was always more fruitful. But if he is in a mood, which is most days, he will find something wrong, even if the catch is good. A bruise on the meat, a patch of missing fur, a feather out of place. It is always enough. Demon. He drops your catch onto the ground, letting it fall with a wet thud. He wipes his hands on his coat as though you have contaminated him by standing too close. I do not know why I bother, he mutters, loud enough for everyone to hear. Lazy. All of you. My children could bring in more than this. You wonder what it would be like to speak your mind, to answer back, to list the reasons for today's thin haul, the broken traps, the patrols, the cold that turned your fingers to wood, the hunger that left you dizzy by noon. But you know better. Each word would be counted against you, added to the tally of failures that never seems to grow any smaller. So you say nothing. You keep your anger buried deep, safe behind your teeth. Sometimes, Mr. Hammond grows tired of words and turns to demonstration. He has a way of making an example of you, calling you forward, forcing you to stand where everyone can see. The whip hangs at his side, casual and light, but its memory is heavy. You know how quickly his boredom can turn to violence. Today, he only raises his voice, but you see the impatience in his eyes, the restless tapping of his fingers. Tomorrow, maybe, you will not be so lucky. The contempt is not just in his words, but in every gesture. He turns his back on you before you are finished, as if your presence is not even worth enduring. He orders you to clean the yard, to scrub the steps, to haul water for the big house, tasks beneath even the barest dignity, reminders that, no matter how hard you work, you will always be found wanting. You catch yourself wishing, sometimes, that you could be invisible, that you could melt into the ground and be forgotten. Anything would be better than this constant scrutiny, this daily parade of disapproval. You know the overseer is not the only one who feels this way. The others, drivers, supervisors, sometimes even the cook, take their cue from him. His contempt trickles down, infecting every corner of the plantation until even the dogs seem to look at you with suspicion. What stings most is how quickly you learn to agree with them. Their voices become your own, a chorus of doubt that echoes in your head even when you are alone. You begin to measure your days by the overseer's moods, to see yourself through his eyes, a failure, a disappointment, a problem waiting to be solved. Yet there are moments, brief and bitter, when you remember what it felt like to be whole, before you learned to keep your head down, before you learned that your worth was measured in pounds of meat and buckets of water, before you learned that contempt could cut deeper than any whip. When the day finally ends, you slip away to your cabin, your steps quick and quiet. The overseer does not notice. He is already shouting at someone else, his voice rising and falling in a rhythm as familiar as the setting sun. You do not look back. You do not want to give him the satisfaction. Inside your cabin, you sit in the dark, your hands folded in your lap, your shoulders tight. The silence is a kind of relief, but it is also empty. You close your eyes and let the anger ebb, let the shame fade. You remind yourself that the overseer's contempt is not the measure of your life. It is only the measure of his own smallness, his own failure to see what is real. You promise yourself quietly that tomorrow you will try again, not because you believe it will make a difference, but because trying is all you have left. And when the dawn comes, so will the contempt, and you will bear it again as you always have. The rules of the plantation are unwritten but ironclad. Whatever you bring in from the woods is never really yours. Ownership is a word that belongs to the white men, the men who stand at the doors of the big house, keys jangling, arms folded, watching every movement with the bored confidence of people who have never gone hungry a day in their lives. Your work fills their plates, your catch fills their bellies. You are simply a link in a chain you cannot see the end of. When the hunt is done, your bag is not yours. It is a gift you give, or more accurately, a tax you pay for existing. You do not get to keep what your hands have found, what your eye has spotted, what your body has carried through bramble and cold. Instead, you bring your catch to the kitchen, presenting it like a penitent, bringing an offering to a jealous god. There is always a sense of ceremony to it, though the ceremony is hollow. The kitchen is the kingdom of the cook, a woman as tough as the overseer, but different. She does not smile, not even when the catch is good. Her hands move fast, practiced, sharp. She has no patience for stories or excuses. She divides the catch according to a formula no one has ever written down, but which everyone seems to know by heart. She takes the best pieces first, legs and breasts from the birds, the fattest parts of rabbit or possum, the cleanest slabs of meat. These go into the basket for the big house, to be roasted or stewed, wrapped in bacon or thick layers of gravy. The overseer or one of the house slaves carries the basket inside, and the door closes behind them, shutting you out along with the scent of real food. The best you can hope for is to catch a whiff of roasting meat as you pass by on some errand. Next come the second best parts: bones with scraps of meat, heads, feet, bits of gristle, anything that might thicken a soup or stretch a meal. These are doled out to the kitchen staff, those who cook and clean, those who wash pots and sweep floors and wait on tables. You watch as they accept their share, faces blank. They are just as hungry as you are, just as skilled at hiding disappointment. Then comes your portion, if there is any left. The cook slides a bit of offal your way, a liver, a kidney, a handful of skin or fat. If you are lucky, it is enough to fill your palm. If not, you get nothing but the memory of a meal you never tasted. You take what you are given without complaint. Complaints have a way of echoing back to the overseer, and you have already had your share of attention today. Once, when you brought in a fox, lean and stringy, the cook took it all for herself, muttering about stew for the sick children in the quarters. You did not argue. You know there is always someone hungrier than you, someone closer to the edge. Still, the memory stings. The rules of division are not just about fairness, they are about reminding you every day that the world belongs to someone else and you are just passing through. You watch the process, noting every hand that touches your catch before it is eaten. The meat passes from cook to house slave, from pot to plate, from plate to mouth. By the time you taste any of it, if you taste it at all, it is cold, stringy, and flavorless. Still, you eat it quickly, knowing there are others waiting for their chance, others hungrier or less patient. Sometimes, after the meal is over, you gather the bones with the other hunters, picking at them for shreds of meat, sucking out the marrow if there is any left. You laugh if you have the strength at the irony of it all, the hunter reduced to a scavenger, the provider waiting for scraps. The others nod along, understanding without words. This is how it is. This is how it will always be. The division of the catch is a public ritual watched by everyone, field hands, house slaves, even the children. They see who gets what, who eats and who goes hungry, who is in favor and who is not. It is a lesson you learn young. Never expect more than you are given. Never reach for what is not offered. Never draw attention when the food is thin. On rare, lucky days, holidays, or when the master is feeling generous, there is more to go around. A squirrel stew thick with cornmeal dumplings, a rabbit pie shared among the quarters. On those nights, you remember what it feels like to be almost full, to fall asleep with something in your belly besides air and longing. But those days are rare, and the memory only sharpens the hunger the rest of the year. You watch the faces of the children as the cook hands out the scraps. Some are grateful for even a bite. Others, older and wiser, have already learned the mathematics of scarcity. They know how to beg without seeming desperate, how to wait their turn without being forgotten, how to eat quickly so the smaller ones do not lose hope. You remember being one of them, and you feel the weight of time pressing on your shoulders. The catch is always less than what is needed. You hear the grumbling in the quarters at night, the whispers about who got more and who got less, the quiet resentment that bubbles beneath the surface but never quite erupts. Hunger is a silent language, spoken by all and understood by everyone. Sometimes, when you lie awake in the dark, you wonder if the men and women in the big house ever think about what it means to divide a meal, to weigh every scrap and bone, to decide who eats and who does not. You doubt it. For them, the division of the catch is invisible, a problem solved before they even sit down at the table. They eat their fill, and if there are leftovers, they feed them to the dogs. You drift off to sleep with the taste of bitterness in your mouth, the echoes of the day's ritual still ringing in your ears. You dream of a world where the catch is yours, where you decide how it is divided, where no one goes hungry unless you choose it. But morning always comes, and with it the old familiar rules. The catch is never yours, and the hunger never leaves. There is a time in the day when the sun is at its highest, when your body expects a break. It is a memory more than a reality, a lesson your stomach never quite unlearns. No matter how many days go by with nothing but air and longing for a meal you know will not come. You call it lunch because there should be a word for that gap in your day, but what you are really describing is absence. Lunch for you is a myth, a ghost meal. It is something you talk about in the same way a child might talk about flying or being free. You say the word with a little smile, as if you are in on the joke. Sometimes you even catch yourself looking toward the kitchen at midday, as though expecting to be called in, as though today might be the day someone remembers to feed you, but no one ever does. By midday, the fatigue sets in hard. Your legs ache, your head swims, your hands tremble with hunger. You try to keep moving, keep working, because stopping is dangerous. If the overseer sees you standing idle, it means you are lazy, ungrateful, possibly even plotting. So you keep your eyes down and your body in motion, pretending not to notice the emptiness gnawing at your insides. You know better than to ask for food. The cook is busy with preparations for the big house. If you are lucky, she might throw you a glance, maybe even a crust of bread. But most days she just mutters and waves you away. There is always more work than food, more mouths than scraps, more need than anyone is willing to meet. Sometimes, when you think no one is looking, you steal a moment by the kitchen door. The smells drifting out, fat spitting in the pan, onions softening, flour browning in butter, are almost a meal in themselves. You close your eyes and breathe deep, trying to fill your belly with the memory of food, as if scent alone could keep you alive. You have learned all the little tricks to make the hunger less. You tie your belt tighter, press your hands against your stomach, chew on a stick or a blade of grass. Some days, you trick yourself into thinking the ache will pass, that it is only temporary. But by afternoon, it is all you can do to keep from doubling over. You feel lightheaded, clumsy, every task harder than it should be. The others know better than to complain. Complaints go nowhere except the overseer's ears, and he is never in the mood for sympathy. Instead, you exchange glances with the other hunters, a silent language of suffering. You see it in the way they move, slow and careful, in the way they wipe their mouths with the back of a hand, in the way they avoid the kitchen altogether, refusing to give in to hope. Once in a while, someone manages to sneak a bite, maybe a handful of dried beans, a piece of old bread found behind the stove, a bit of cornmeal scraped from the bottom of the barrel. These victories are small and dangerous, and you celebrate them quietly, knowing that to be caught is to lose more than a meal. You have seen men whipped for less. You remember a story passed around in whispers about a man who hid a potato in his shirt for 3 days, waiting for the right moment to eat it. He was caught, of course. The punishment was as public as it was brutal. No one spoke of potatoes after that, and the story became another caution, another reason to keep your hunger to yourself. There are occasionally the days when the master is away, when the routines are disrupted, when the kitchen is less guarded. On those rare afternoons, you and the others might find yourselves with a spoonful of stew or a cold biscuit left over from breakfast. The taste is always more salt than meat, more disappointment than nourishment, but you savor it anyway, letting it linger on your tongue as long as possible. Most days, though, lunch is just an idea, a word you say to yourself to fill the silence. The big house eats in shifts, one meal after another, laughter and clatter drifting out through the open windows. You catch glimpses, plates piled high, pitchers of milk and coffee, hands reaching for more, always more. You turn away, not wanting to see what you cannot have. The children fare no better. They gather in small groups behind the cabins, swapping dreams about what they would eat if given the chance. Pies and cakes and roast chickens, corn fritters and honeycomb and fresh peaches. You listen sometimes, letting their fantasies wash over you. You remember when you could dream like that, when food was something to look forward to, not something to fear. When the sun finally dips and the day turns toward evening, you realize you have survived another lunchless day. It is a kind of victory, though it does not feel like one. You are weak and tired, but you are still standing. You tell yourself it is enough. You wonder how long a person can go without food before the body simply refuses to go on. You have heard stories, men who dropped in the fields, women who fainted at the washtubs, children who wasted away before they ever had a chance to grow strong. You tell yourself you are not one of them, that you will not be one of them. But the truth is, you are only as strong as the scraps you are given. Dinner is still hours away. The work is not done. You force yourself back to your chores, back to the rhythm of the plantation, back to the world that expects you to keep moving, no matter how empty you feel. Lunch does not exist for you. It is a rumor, a hope, a story told by people who have never had to wonder where their next meal will come from. You tuck the thought away and keep going because that is what you have always done, because that is all you can do. You would think, after a morning spent scouring the woods and carrying your catch back across the fields, that you might be allowed a brief respite, perhaps a few minutes to sit in the shade, to loosen your shoes, to remind your aching body that it still belongs to you. But rest is a luxury reserved for someone else's life, someone else's story. Here, the day is a wheel that never stops turning, and if you ever manage to step off, you risk being crushed beneath it. So, after a lunch that does not exist, and a moment stolen by the cabin door to stretch your sore back, you hear the call, sharp and impatient, beckoning you for a second trip into the woods. The overseer is not satisfied, or perhaps the master has guests tonight, or maybe it is just that the catch from the morning looks smaller on the kitchen table than it did in your bag. It does not matter why. The only thing that matters is that you are told, and you must obey. You do not ask questions. You do not dare sigh or grumble, even under your breath. You gather your tools, the battered musket slung over your shoulder, your bag limp and tired as you are, your pouch of powder and shot a little lighter than it was at dawn. Your legs protest as you force them to move. Each step feels heavier than the last. The sun now high and hot, every patch of shade already claimed by flies and hope. Sometimes There are others sent out with you, Abraham, or one of the boys, or even the cook's son, pressed into service because every hand is needed. You exchange glances as you meet at the edge of the trees, the silent question hanging between you: how much more do they want? No one says it out loud. The answer, as always, is more than you have left. The afternoon woods are different. The coolness of morning has burned off, leaving behind air thick with humidity and the metallic scent of sweat and old leaves. The birds are quieter now, sheltering in the thickest branches, and even the squirrels seem slower, as if they too resent being disturbed again. Your stomach growls with a new intensity, a low, persistent ache that makes you clumsy, your concentration broken by the memory of meals you have never had. You force yourself to focus. Every movement counts. There is less game in the afternoon, and what there is has already learned to hide from the day's dangers: foxes and dogs, patrols and boys with sticks. You know the signs to look for: a fresh trail in the mud, a faint movement in the grass, a sudden hush in the air. Your eyes scan for anything that might feed another mouth, that might delay the overseer's anger for another night. You move more slowly now, legs dragging, head pounding in the heat. The gun is a burden, the bag a mockery, as if it knows it will not be filled again. You remember every rule: never waste a shot, never stray too far, never let yourself be seen resting. The fear, never quite gone, creeps back as you hear distant voices, the bark of a dog, the snap of a branch not broken by you. Is it another hunter? A patroller? Something worse? You grip the musket tighter, breath held, every muscle coiled to run or freeze as needed. Sometimes, if you are lucky, you catch something: a rabbit, careless enough to emerge for a late snack, a bird too young to know better. More often, your luck is thin. You curse the empty patches of ground, the traps that spring shut on nothing but air, the sky that blazes with indifference to your suffering. You wipe your brow, taste the salt of your own skin, and trudge on. If you are with others, conversation is scarce. You are too tired to waste words. You exchange glances, small gestures, the silent arithmetic of the woods. How many have you caught? How many do you need? How many chances left before the sun sets and the day is lost? Sometimes you trade places. One of you pushes deeper into the brush, another circles back to check a snare. You move like shadows, each haunted by the same hunger, the same dread. Time loses meaning in the afternoon heat. Minutes drag out into hours, the light growing slant and golden as the day wears on. Your thoughts turn inward, half dreaming, half dreading the moment when you must turn back, when you must face the overseer and the cook and the silent accusations of every hungry stomach in the quarters. The walk home is already a punishment, and you have not even started it. Occasionally, there is a moment of small victory, a shot that lands true, a trap that springs on something more than leaves and memory. You let yourself feel a flicker of relief, but it dies quickly, replaced by the old anxiety. Is it enough? Will it be enough? The woods seem to mock your efforts, every tree and stone a silent witness to your struggle. When the sun finally dips toward the horizon, you know you have reached the end of your second shift. You gather what little you have, tuck it into your bag, and begin the slow walk back. Your legs feel as if they belong to someone else, your hands numb, your mind drifting on the edge of exhaustion and despair. You see the plantation before you see the people, a line of cabins, the glow of lamps in the big house, the smoke rising from the kitchen chimney. You hear voices calling, children laughing, someone singing a low, tired song. You feel no joy at the sight, only relief that for today, your time in the woods is over. You drop your catch at the kitchen door, too weary for conversation. The cook glances at your bag, says nothing, and adds your offering to the day's meager tally. The overseer, if he is near, nods or grunts, but his eyes say what his mouth does not. Tomorrow there will be more. There must be more. You trudge back to your cabin, feet dragging, body aching, heart empty. The sky is painted with sunset, but you do not see its beauty. You are thinking of tomorrow's hunt, of empty traps and tired hands, of another day that will ask more of you than you have to give. Rest is not sleep, not here. Rest is only the absence of motion, the brief moment when the world lets you stop pretending you are more than flesh and bone and hunger. You sit on your cot, eyes closed, hands limp in your lap, and let the darkness settle around you. And tomorrow, when the wheel turns again, you will answer the call. Because you must. Evening on the plantation is not a time of rest. It is a transition, a passing from one set of demands to another. The sun has not yet fully vanished, but already the world feels smaller, tighter, more dangerous. The golden light slants across the yard, long shadows stretching from cabin to cabin, as if the whole world is exhaling after holding its breath all day. But for you, there is no exhale. There is only the next command, the next inspection, the next way to be found lacking. It is time for roll call. Roll call is not about counting heads. It is about counting worth, about taking stock, not just of bodies, but of usefulness, obedience, visible wounds. You line up with the others, your back straight, your eyes forward, your mouth shut. The overseer paces in front of you, whip in hand, his face a mask of fatigue and contempt. He looks at you the way a farmer looks at fence posts after a storm, checking for damage, deciding which ones need replacing. Tonight, your body aches, your legs are heavy, your stomach hollow, your mind clouded by exhaustion and hunger. You want nothing more than to sit, to stretch, to close your eyes and pretend, just for a moment, that you are somewhere else. But you cannot relax, not even for a heartbeat. The roll call is the overseer's stage, and every one of you is a potential villain in his nightly play. He calls your name, never the real one, always the one he prefers, the one that fits in his ledger and rolls off his tongue with just enough mockery to remind you who you are not. You answer, "Here, sir," because any other word is an invitation to trouble. You watch as he checks the list, his finger pausing over your line, as if expecting you to vanish out of spite. He inspects your hands, looking for cuts that should not be there or work that should have been done. He examines your bag, pokes at your catch, sniffs for the scent of anything not permitted: liquor, tobacco, a stolen bit of food. His nose is always searching for rebellion, no matter how imaginary. Tonight, as on so many nights, the overseer's questions are pointed and rhetorical. Why so little? Did you spend the afternoon napping? Do you think I am blind, boy? The others shuffle their feet, avoiding your eyes, because today it is your turn. Tomorrow it will be theirs. The rules of the roll call are clear. Never defend yourself, never contradict, never explain. The only acceptable answer is silence or apology. Sometimes someone is missing, off in the woods, still hunting, or perhaps collapsed in the field, or maybe simply gone. The roll call is never about finding them. It is about making sure everyone else knows what happens when you are not where you are supposed to be. The overseer makes a show of disappointment, sometimes sends out a search party, more often just marks a note in his book and moves on. In the morning, there might be a punishment, or there might be nothing. The roll call is more ritual than remedy. On rare evenings, when tempers are short or the day's catch is especially poor, the roll call becomes a spectacle. The overseer might choose someone at random, too slow, too thin, too unlucky, and bring the whip down just to remind everyone of his power. You have been that someone before. You have watched the whip fall on others, heard the sharp crack, seen the blood. The lesson is always the same. You are here to be counted, not to count. The cook stands by the kitchen door, arms crossed, watching the proceedings with an expression that never changes. She knows who will eat tonight and who will go hungry. She knows whose hands are raw from work and whose are trembling from hunger. Her job is to feed, not to comfort, and the roll call is as much her concern as anyone's. Sometimes she slips an extra scrap to a child who cannot stand upright, but she never does it when the overseer is watching. As the sun finally drops below the trees, the roll call winds down. The overseer closes his book, dismisses you all with a wave of his hand, as if brushing away a flock of bothersome birds. "Get on," he says. "I do not want to see you standing around when there's work left to do." You file away from the line, shoulders slumped, feet dragging in the dust. The day is nearly over, but not quite. There are still chores to be finished: water to haul, wood to chop, fires to tend, children to soothe. The roll call lingers in your mind, every question and accusation sticking like burrs in your thoughts. You think sometimes about the absurdity of it all, how every evening, without fail, you are called out, lined up, named and shamed and dismissed, as if the simple act of being counted is a privilege instead of a cage. You think about how, On other plantations, the roll call is the same, different faces, different voices, but the same cold arithmetic, the same calculus of control. You wonder if the overseer enjoys it, or if it is just another part of his routine, as meaningless to him as the chores are to you. You wonder if he dreams about the roll call, if he lies awake at night, replaying the faces and names, congratulating himself on another day well managed. Or perhaps he forgets you all as soon as the book is closed, your names fading into the twilight like smoke. You know better than to ask. The overseer's world is not yours, and his reasons are none of your business. You are here to be counted, and that is all. When you finally reach your cabin, the day has turned to darkness. You sit on the step, back pressed against the wall, listening to the sounds of the night, crickets chirping, children crying, the distant clatter of dishes in the kitchen. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke and sweat, the taste of disappointment and relief. Another day survived. Another roll call answered. You try to remember a time when being counted meant something else, when it meant you were part of a family, a village, a world that valued your presence. But those memories are distant, faded, more dream than history. Here, the only thing that matters is that you are here when you are called, standing straight, answering to the name they give you, bearing whatever judgment is handed down. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, and the roll call will begin again. The overseer will shout, the book will open, and you will take your place in the line. And so it will go, day after day, year after year, until the numbers change or you vanish from the list altogether. You close your eyes, listening to the quiet. The evening is over. You have been counted for now. That is enough. Evening on the plantation is a peculiar thing. You might think, as the day cools and the last of the sunlight slips behind the trees, that some measure of peace would descend on the world. You might imagine that after all the labor, the hunting, the roll calls and reprimands, the night would be your own, yours to rest, to dream, to recover in whatever way you can. But you know better. The evening belongs to the same people the day does, and your life, like your time, is portioned out in ways that never quite allow you to call any of it your own. After roll call, you are dismissed not to leisure, but to chores. The word chore is a small mercy compared to what is demanded. You gather wood for the cook fires, branches snapped from the edge of the woods, logs split by hand with the dull, battered axe that bites your palms as much as the wood. The fire is never quite enough. The cook always wants more, and the threat of going without supper hangs over every evening task like a low, gray cloud. You haul water from the well, filling buckets that seem heavier every night. The rope bites into your hands. The bucket swings and sloshes, your arms trembling with fatigue. Sometimes, if you are lucky, you are assigned to carry water with someone else, and the work goes twice as fast, the weight halved by the small relief of shared misery. Other times, you make the journey alone, the path between well and kitchen worn into your memory, by repetition. Inside the cabins, the routines are as strict as any roll call. Some clean, sweeping out the day's dust, chasing out the bugs, tidying away the few possessions you are allowed. Others tend to children, wiping faces, braiding hair, quieting the endless questions that only children can ask. When will we eat? Why do we have to work? Will it rain tomorrow? You answer as best you can, because it is what grown folk do, but your own answers are thin, as insubstantial as the supper that waits. Supper is a ceremony of low expectations. You gather in the long shadows outside the cabins, bowls and cups in hand, waiting for your turn at the kitchen door. The meal is almost always the same: thin stew, heavy on water, light on meat, thickened with whatever was left from the morning's hunt. Sometimes there is a hunk of cornbread, dry and crumbly, or a handful of beans, or, on the best days, a sliver of pork or a bone with just enough marrow to suck clean. You eat quickly, standing or squatting in the dirt, savoring every mouthful even as you know it is not enough. Conversation during supper is sparse, a mix of whispers and glances, the voices of those too tired for talk. You trade news: who is sick, who got a letter, whose turn it is for laundry tomorrow. You joke, if you can muster the energy, about the overseer's temper, the weather, the unchanging menu. Laughter is rare but precious, a brief reprieve from the weight of the day. As darkness deepens, the chores do not quite stop. Babies must be rocked, wounds dressed, tempers soothed. You barter for small comforts: half a biscuit for a bit of lard, a threadbare blanket for a cup of sorghum. Sometimes, when you are very lucky, you find a few minutes for yourself: to mend a shirt, to sharpen a blade, to sit in silence and watch the firelight flicker on the wall. The elders tell stories in the evenings, their voices low and steady, weaving memory and warning into every tale. Stories of Africa, passed down from parents and grandparents, stories of freedom, of clever men and women who escaped the yoke, stories of old gods and new hope, wrapped in laughter that is more defiance than delight. You listen, letting their words wash over you, knowing that each story is both a comfort and a reminder. You are not the first to suffer, and you will not be the last. Night is the only time you dare to think of the world outside the plantation, the world of dreams, of escape, of something better than what you have been given. You look up at the stars through a gap in the roof and imagine they are the same stars your ancestors saw, the same stars lighting the way for those who ran north, the same stars that one day might guide you too. But hope is a dangerous thing here, a candle easily snuffed out. Most nights you keep it hidden, letting your body fall into the rhythm of work, supper, chores, sleep. You do not let yourself dream too much, because dreams can make the mornings harder. The evening routine ends as quietly as it began. Someone blows out the candle, someone closes the cabin door. You lie down on your pallet, muscles stiff and aching, your stomach never quite full. You listen to the sounds outside, the shuffle of feet, The distant bark of a dog, the low hum of voices trailing off into exhausted silence. You stare up at the ceiling, counting the boards, letting your mind drift. Tomorrow will be the same. Chores and hunting, roll calls and contempt, the same thin stew and the same tired stories. But for a few minutes, as sleep approaches, the routine is yours. You are not hunted. You are not scolded. You are not anything but a tired person caught between one day and the next. And for now, that is enough. Night on the plantation is a time of secrets, whispered words, and stolen fragments of something that could almost be called community. When the work is finally done and the chores have been seen to, when the children have been put to bed and the cabin doors pulled shut, you find yourself left with what little remains of your energy, and sometimes with the fragile comfort of company. In the evenings, talk is both a luxury and a risk. The walls of the cabins are thin, and the windows even thinner. Voices travel where they are not meant to go, and the overseer or his men sometimes patrol outside, listening for the kinds of conversations that can get a person whipped or worse. You know this, and so does everyone else. Yet, like hunger, the urge to speak and to be heard is not something that can be denied forever. It presses up from inside, seeking release, searching for ears that understand. You speak in low voices, sometimes barely more than a breath, heads bowed together in the dim light. There is a ritual to it, a quick glance to make sure no one is lurking outside, a nod to the others that now is the time, if there is a time at all. The language is careful, the topics chosen with precision. You do not speak openly of freedom or escape, not unless you trust everyone in the room with your life, and even then, rarely. Instead, you speak of small things, the daily indignities that pile up, the aches and sores that refuse to heal, the overseer's latest insults. You share what news you can. Rumors from the big house, whispers from the kitchen, bits of information carried from one end of the fields to the other. They say the master might sell off some land. They say someone new is coming, maybe another driver. They say the harvest will be harder this year. The news is never good, but it is a thread that connects you, a way of reminding each other that you are not alone in your suffering. Sometimes, though, the talk turns to memories, to places left behind and people lost along the way. You listen to the elders tell of their childhoods, of homes far away, of parents and siblings whose names are barely remembered. You hear about the time before slavery, or at least before this particular plantation, and you wonder what it would have been like to live in a world where your time was your own, where your voice carried beyond these four thin walls. There are moments when the stories grow bolder, when the fire in someone's eyes flares up, and they talk about freedom, not as a dream, but as a thing that has happened to people they knew or heard about. They talk of men and women who ran north, who made it to cities with names that sound like magic: Philadelphia, Boston, even Canada. They talk about the ones who were caught and the ones who vanished, never to be seen again. Each story is a warning and a promise, a reminder that the world is larger than the plantation, that the night for all its dangers, also holds possibilities. Laughter, when it comes, is soft and fleeting, as fragile as a moth's wing. You laugh at the absurdity of the overseer's latest command, at the cook's sour face, at the children's wild games. The laughter is a balm, a way to push back against the bleakness that presses in from every side. For a moment, the burdens of the day seem lighter, your hunger less urgent, your pain less sharp. The children, if they are awake, hover at the edge of these conversations, wide eyed and silent. They learn the rhythms of fear and caution, the art of saying much with few words, the necessity of silence. They listen to the stories, memorize the names, tuck the lessons away for the days when they, too, will need them. You want to protect them, to let them believe in something better, but you know that the best you can do is teach them how to survive. Sometimes there are songs, soft, mournful, filled with longing and hope in equal measure. The old spirituals, passed from voice to voice, carry meaning that the overseer cannot decipher. Steal away home. The melody floats through the darkness, a secret signal, a coded message, a reminder that even in this place you have something that cannot be taken. You find yourself clinging to these rare moments of communication, storing them up like precious food against the lean times. You remember the warmth of a hand on your shoulder, the comfort of a whispered joke, the reassurance of being seen and heard, even if only for a few minutes each night. These are the things that keep you human, that remind you you are more than a body to be worked, more than a name to be called at roll call. You know, too, that these moments are fragile. All it takes is one careless word, one footstep outside the door, and the illusion of safety is shattered. You have seen what happens when someone is caught saying too much, watched as they were dragged from their cabin, heard their cries echo through the night. The risk is always there, a shadow in the corner of every conversation. And yet, you keep speaking, you keep listening, because in the end, communication is survival. It is how you remember who you are and who you might have been. It is how you keep hope alive, even when everything else seems bent on crushing it. As the night deepens and the fire burns low, the conversation fades to murmurs, then to silence. You drift towards sleep, the words of your companions still echoing in your ears. In your dreams, you are still talking, still listening, still reaching for connection in a world that does everything it can to keep you apart. Tomorrow, the work will begin again. The overseer will shout, and you will return to the silence of daylight. But tonight, for a few brief hours, you have been heard, and sometimes that is enough. There is a time late at night when even the most stubborn exhaustion cannot keep your mind from wandering. You lie on your cot, if you are lucky enough to have one, or on the splintered floorboards, blanket bunched beneath your head, staring up into the blackness. The sounds of the plantation settle into their night rhythms. A dog barking somewhere out in the dark, a child whimpering in sleep, the low hum of insects pressing against the walls. In the cabins, the air is thick and close, heavy with sweat, wood smoke, and the faint bitterness of disappointment. It is in this hour that the dreams come. But these are not the kind of dreams the white children in the big house might have. Dreams of Christmas feasts and new shoes, of lessons in reading and music, of laughter at the dinner table. No, your dreams are smaller, rougher, stubborn in the way that only the hopeless can be. They are shaped by hunger, by fear, by the slow chipping away of the spirit. Sometimes they are so small you are almost ashamed of them. You dream of food that fills your belly and warms your bones, of a meal where you are allowed the first and last bite, where no one takes your share and nothing must be hidden. You dream of sleep that is deep and unbroken, where your body can rest without the ache in your shoulders or the stinging of the day's fresh bruises. You dream of a place where the morning is not a threat, but a promise, where the call to rise is not a summons to suffering, but an invitation to possibility. Sometimes your dreams dare to go further. Sometimes you find yourself running through a forest that is not the plantation's woods, but something vaster, wilder, without boundaries or patrols or men on horseback. You are light as air, your feet barely touching the ground, every breath full of freedom and clean wind. There is no one behind you, no overseer's voice calling your borrowed name, no whip cracking the air. In these dreams, you are nobody's property. You belong to yourself, and the very act of breathing is an act of rebellion. The old folks say dreams are dangerous. They say that letting yourself believe too much is a kind of weakness, that hope can be as heavy as chains. You understand this. You have seen what happens to men and women who let hope slip into their hearts, how quickly it curdles into despair when the day proves it was always a lie. You have watched strong people grow brittle, their eyes dimming each time the world reminds them how little it intends to give. And yet, you cannot help it. The dreams come, whether you invite them or not. They creep in around the edges of sleep, weaving themselves out of memory and desire. You dream of the land you have never seen, of a family you will never find again, of songs sung in a language you barely remember. Sometimes you wake in the night, tears on your face, the ache of longing pressing so hard in your chest you feel you might never breathe again. You have heard stories, stories whispered in the dark, stories handed down from elders with voices like gravel and hands like leather, of those who dreamed big enough to run. They talk of men who followed the North Star, women who vanished into the swamp and never returned, children who slipped away in the night, never to be seen again, except as the subject of cautionary tales. For every story that ends in freedom, there are 5 that end in capture, in punishment, in loss. The lesson is clear. Dreams are not for people like you. At best, they are a luxury. At worst, they are a trap. Still, you dream. You cannot help it. Some nights, your dreams are so vivid, you wake believing them to be real, believing that the chains are broken, that your hands are clean, that the world outside your door is yours for the taking. The disappointment that follows is almost physical. You lie there in the dark, your body heavy with reality, the echo of freedom fading faster than you can clutch it. You have seen dreams twist into nightmares too. The memories that refuse to leave, the sight of someone being taken away in the night, the sound of a whip, the smell of burning meat in the kitchen, the feeling of hunger so sharp it leaves you hollow. Sometimes you dream of running, only to find your legs will not move, your voice will not shout, your breath caught in your throat like a curse. Sometimes you dream of the overseer, his eyes everywhere, his voice booming even in your sleep, calling you back to the line, back to the list, back to the unending day. If you speak of these dreams, you do so with care. Most people will nod, eyes distant, their own dreams flickering behind their gaze. A few will warn you, best not to dwell on things that cannot be, and you understand. But sometimes, especially with the young ones, you share a piece of your hope, a scrap of your vision, as if by saying it out loud, you might make it real for a second. One day, maybe, things will change. One day, maybe, we'll eat our fill and sleep until we're done. It is almost a joke, but not quite. Dreams are a quiet rebellion. They are the part of yourself that no one can claim, not even the master with his ledgers and his keys. As long as you can dream, you are not entirely theirs. As long as you can imagine a world beyond the plantation, you are not completely lost. But when morning comes, the dreams fade, chased away by the slap of the overseer's boots, the bark of his commands, the cold certainty of hunger and work and roll call. You rise from your bed, the fragments of your hopes scattered like ashes, and step back into the day. The dreams do not come true, but you carry them anyway, tucked deep inside where no one can see. Perhaps, you think, that is the most dangerous thing of all. The cruelest part of life on the plantation is not just the monotony, the hunger, or the ache in your bones. It is the knowledge that, come morning, it all begins again. If the night gives any comfort, it is only the comfort of temporary forgetfulness, a chance to drift for a few hours in the shallow waters of sleep. Morning always returns, always on schedule, and with it comes the familiar pulse of anxiety. You wake before the sun, as always. There is no need for a clock. Your body has been trained by years of alarms that are not yours, by the bark of the overseer, by the slam of doors, by the faint sound of movement from other cabins. You do not wake gently. There is no warm hand or soft voice, only the jolt of fear. What will today bring? What fresh humiliation or punishment? What new indignity? What small disaster waiting at the edge of the day? You open your eyes to darkness. The cabin is still, the shapes of sleeping bodies barely visible in the gray pre dawn. Someone coughs. Someone else mutters a prayer. You listen, counting the breaths, the soft snores, the shifting feet. Already your mind is racing. What needs doing first? What did you forget last night? Who might be in a mood to take offense today? The first challenge of the morning is not physical labor, but a mental calculation how to survive another day. There is little time for reflection. As soon as the first sounds of activity come from outside, you move quietly, carefully, because a loud footstep or a clatter of tin will earn you a scolding or worse. You slip on your clothes, rough, patched, and stiff from yesterday's sweat and dirt. Your shoes, if you have them, are misshapen by constant use. If not, you prepare yourself for the morning's stones and cold earth. You join the others outside, each person already marked by the same heavy eyed wariness. You do not speak much, not yet. Everyone is saving their words, their energy, for whatever the day will demand. You line up for the morning gruel, the thin, tasteless porridge that is both meal and insult. You swallow it quickly, feeling it slip into the hollow place in your belly, knowing it is not enough, but pretending otherwise. The air is sharp, damp with the promise of another relentless day. Above, the sky is still dark, the stars fading as if they are ashamed to witness what happens here. You look toward the big house, its windows dark, its doors shut against the world. You wonder if they are sleeping still, warm and comfortable, dreaming dreams that will come true. The overseer arrives, as he always does, with the same voice, the same stride, the same catalogue of suspicion and irritation. He calls names, checks lists, looks for any sign of weakness or resistance. You feel his eyes skim over you, measuring your posture, your clothes, the set of your jaw. He is not looking for excellence. He is looking for anything he can call out, anything that can become an example. Today, he seems particularly impatient. Maybe it is the weather. Maybe it is something that happened in the big house, a rumor or a complaint that has made its way down the invisible ladder. Maybe it is simply the nature of men who spend their lives in command. Someone must pay for their discomfort. The morning's tension is a living thing, curling in your chest and stomach, making your movements stiff and uncertain. Instructions are handed out. Go to the fields, fetch wood, tend to the livestock, gather for the hunt. If you are chosen for hunting, the old anxiety settles on you with renewed weight. You think of yesterday's catch, of the overseer's sneer, of the cook's impatient glare. You wonder if Tipples will be better, or if the forest will once again seem empty and silent, all the game driven deeper by your footsteps and fear. As you shoulder your musket and bag, you cannot help but notice the looks exchanged by the others. Some are wishing you luck, others are just relieved it is not their turn. You nod, trying to look calm, but your insides twist. The same old questions beat in your head. Will you bring back enough? Will the gun misfire? Will the patrols be out, bored and cruel, looking for any excuse? You cross the yard toward the woods, the cold air biting your cheeks, the ground hard beneath your feet. Each step feels heavier, your mind already running through the day's possibilities. What if, what if, what if? It is a kind of rehearsal, a way to be ready for every disappointment and every blow. And beneath it all is a quieter dread, one you never speak aloud. What if today you simply cannot do it? What if your body gives out? or your luck runs dry, or your spirit finally breaks. You have seen it happen to others. A stumble, a wrong word, a failure to meet impossible expectations, and you know how little it takes for someone to disappear, to be swallowed by the machine of the plantation. As you step into the trees, you look back just once at the cabins and the yard, the other faces already turned away. The day is just beginning, but you feel as if you have already lived a lifetime before breakfast. The cycle is unbroken, the anxiety as faithful as the rising sun. If hope exists, it is a fragile, flickering thing. You hold on to it, not because you believe today will be different, but because to let go would be to let the day win before it even starts. You tell yourself, as you do every morning, that you will survive. You will keep your head down, do what is asked, find something, anything, to bring back. The sky brightens, the work begins, and the new day unfolds. Another day that is not yours, another day lived on borrowed time. And all the while, the quiet, pounding anxiety beats on, a rhythm as steady and inescapable as your own heart. If there is a crueler joke than the way hope is used against you on the plantation, you have not yet heard it. The endless repetition, the promises, spoken and unspoken, that things could get better if only you work harder, hunt more, obey without question. You want to believe it sometimes. You want to think there is a reason to try. But by the end of another day, after another cycle of hunger, suspicion, and exhaustion, the realization seeps into your bones, heavier than fatigue. The wheel you are turning goes nowhere. The futility is the point. It comes over you in moments, sometimes gradual as dusk, sometimes sharp as a slap. It comes in the woods when you crouch for hours with nothing to show but dirty hands and sore knees. It comes at the kitchen door when you watch the cook take the best of your catch and leave you with scraps or nothing at all. It comes in the yard, standing for roll call, hearing your name twisted into a curse, knowing that no matter how well you perform today, tomorrow you will be found wanting again. At first, you tell yourself that tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow, you will catch more, run faster, work harder, but tomorrow never arrives. There is only a line of yesterdays stretching behind you, identical and indistinct, and a string of tomorrows waiting with the same empty hands. There is no amount of obedience or strength or cleverness that will buy you peace. There is only the next task. You start to notice the small ways the world resists you. The musket jams for the third time in a week, and you realize it is not because you are clumsy, but because it is old and poorly cared for, like everything else you are given. The bag for your catch sags and splits, and you know it will not be replaced until it falls apart entirely. The overseer's threats are as stale as the cornbread at supper, the cook's portioning as tight as ever. The plantation was not designed to make you succeed. It was designed to keep you in motion, to keep you occupied, to make sure you are too tired to think about freedom, let alone seek it. The realization is not liberating, it is suffocating. You begin to see how little space there is between you and the animals you hunt. Both of you are driven by fear and hunger. Both of you are caught and consumed in your own ways. The difference is only in who gets to hold the gun and who must carry the wounds. Your life is not your own, and every reminder of that fact presses down on you until you feel smaller, thinner, less than you ever believed possible. It would be easier, maybe, if there was a reason for it all. If the suffering built to something, if the work was rewarded with anything but more work. But the truth is inescapable. You are not a hero in a story, not the clever fox or the wise hunter. You are a shadow cast by someone else's need, erased and redrawn each day by forces beyond your understanding. You see it in the faces of the others too, the hollow eyes, the flat expressions, the resignation that seeps into every gesture. Sometimes you talk about escape, about rebellion, about what you would do if the chains suddenly fell away. But most nights, you know it is just talk, a way to pass the time and remind each other that you can still imagine a world beyond the one you wake to every morning. Some try to keep their spirits alive with songs, with stories, with the tiniest acts of resistance, stealing a few minutes to rest, sneaking a bite of food meant for someone else, whispering words of hope to the children. But even these gestures are reminders of how little you are allowed to claim. The best you can hope for is to survive with a shred of dignity, to keep your anger alive beneath the surface, to hold on to the part of yourself that remembers what it feels like to be free. The plantation is built on the lie that your suffering is necessary, that your toil is noble, that your sacrifice is for the greater good. But in the quiet of the evening, when the yard is empty and the stars are high, you understand the pain, the hunger, the endless grind. It is not a path to something better, it is the destination. The point is to wear you down, to make you so tired that you forget what you are missing, to keep you chasing after enough, always just out of reach. You feel it most sharply when you look at the big house, glowing with light, laughter drifting through its windows, the smell of food you will never taste wafting through the night. You realize that your hunt was never for meat or approval or even survival. It was for something you can never possess, your own life, your own will, your own rest. There is a bitter wisdom in understanding futility. You know, finally, that the overseer's approval is as worthless as the thin gruel at dawn, that the roll call, the inspection, the ritual of being counted is just a reminder that you are an object, valued only for what you provide, disposable when you do not. The musket, the chores, the hunt, none of it leads anywhere but back to the beginning. You are not the hunter here. The real hunt is for your spirit, your hope, your humanity. Every day, the world tries to track it down, to corner it, to bleed it dry and hang it on the wall as a warning to the others. Some days you win small victories, a quiet word, a half remembered song, a smile at sunset. But you know that, in the end, the hunt is endless and the prize is always out of reach. Tomorrow will come and you will rise again and the wheel will turn. But tonight, You let yourself feel the full weight of it, the futility, the grief, the emptiness at the heart of this life. You let yourself be still, if only for a moment, and remember that even if the world has stolen almost everything, it cannot make you stop knowing the truth. The cycle is unbroken, the game is fixed. The point is not to win, but to endure. And you do.